Okay. So now that we've seen existing RowHammer solutions with GIStalk and self-managing DRAM, I'm going to talk about a new phenomenon that we essentially discovered in DRAM recently. We published this in HPCA 2025. We call it variable read disturbance. And this is yet another reason to have better in-DRAM maintenance operations and better RowHammer protection in DRAM, in our opinion. Since we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to skip a lot of slides. Sorry about that. But hopefully I'll give you the gist of the phenomenon. This is really fascinating, I think. If people know about the variable retention time phenomenon in DRAM, this is a corollary of that for read disturbance. How many people know about the variable retention time? Yes? No? So variable retention time is the phenomenon that the retention time of a cell varies randomly and unpredictably. So if you test the retention time of a cell right now, it could be 100 seconds. If you test it tomorrow, it could be 8 milliseconds under the same conditions. Nothing else changes. Temperature, voltage, nothing else changes. And the reason is because of what I call quantum-like effects. You get charge trapped, trap-assisted gate-induced drain leakage. First time this was documented was in 1987 by Yaney at IEDM. And this is one of the reasons why testing for retention time is difficult in DRAM. And this is one of the major reasons why DRAM manufacturers have introduced in-DRAM ECC to correct errors, because testing at very scale technologies is very difficult in the presence of variable retention time. Basically, we find a very similar phenomenon exists in RowHammer. If you have a RowHammer, a vulnerable cell, the number of activations you need to induce a bit flip in that cell varies randomly and unpredictably over time. So you need to keep testing that cell over and over to figure out how many activations you need to induce so that you can get a bit flip in that cell. So this makes the RowHammer protections much worse, because determining how many activations to basically configuring your RowHammer protection mechanisms requires you to know how many activations will induce a bit flip. And if you don't know that well, if that changes randomly and predictably over time, you may get a very small number, whereas you configure your maintenance your mechanism to be a large number. And as a result, you may actually get bit flips when you're not supposed to get bit flips. So we believe this is very exciting and interesting. We found this at the architectural level using our infrastructure, but we don't have a device level explanation to this. So we hope people who are working on device level will provide an explanation. Okay. So I've given you the whole talk, so maybe I should stop over here. But let's skip this. I think we talked about DRAM organization. So we talked about DRAM read disturbance, or RowHammer is if you keep activating a row, you get bit flips in physically adjacent rows in vulnerable cells. There's also row press, which is another phenomenon that we documented 2 years ago. Basically, if you keep a row active for a long time, it causes bit flips in adjacent rows. You don't have to keep repeatedly activating it. So variable read disturbance applies to both row press and RowHammer. So there are many read disturbance solutions that are proposed in literature, in industry. We talked about a few of them in GIStalk. Each solution requires a different system design point, and there's a very rich trade-off space in reliability, performance, energy, and area. But all of these solutions essentially require knowing a read disturbance threshold. They take a preventive action before a bit flip manifests. For these solutions to work, you must accurately quantify when to take an action before the DRAM cell actually gets a bit flip. So read disturbance threshold is the number of aggressor row activations needed to induce the first bit flip. Now you need to know that. You need to test for this. So this accurate identification of this read disturbance threshold, I'm going to call this RDT, is really critical for both security and performance. So let's assume that you configured, there's a configured RDT for the mitigation technique. It could be any mitigation technique actually for RowHammer. And this is the performance and energy overhead. And you have a curve that looks like this. And this is the ground truth. You know that the cell, for example, will get a bit flip after 1,000 activations. That's the ground truth RDT. Do you know this? We don't know. Now, if you overestimate your RDT, meaning you configure your RDT to be much larger, meaning your mitigation mechanism takes action after 10,000 activations, and your bit flip happens after 1,000, you're insecure now because you get a bit flip. You cannot prevent that bit flip. But you're very low overhead, but you don't want to be here, clearly. Now, if you underestimate the RDT, you get a high overhead. For example, you say that I'm going to get a bit flip after 20 activations, but really I'm going to get a bit flip after 1,000. Now I get high overhead, but I'm quite secure. We don't want that either because that's high overhead in terms of performance. Ideally, we would like to determine this. Yeah, for performance and security. So the summary of variable read disturbance, I've already given you this actually. How do we accurately and efficiently measure the read disturbance threshold of each DRAM row? This was the research question we asked. And using our infrastructure, we recorded many 100 million RDT measurements across as many rows as we could, with many test parameters, temperature, data pattern, etc., across 160 DDR4 and 4 HBM2 chips. And we found out that RDT significantly unpredictably varies. Maximum observed RDT is actually 3.5x higher than minimum for a given row. And the smallest RDT may appear after more than 95,000 measurements. So testing for this is actually time consuming. So implications, essentially, RDT cannot be accurately identified quickly. And given our limited data set, this is a limited data set. Even with this limited data sets, you need to increase your guard bands, not more than 10%, but better to do it 20%. This is the guard band for RDT. And you want to use ECC. This may prevent variable read disturbance induced bit flips at significant performance cost, essentially. You get significant performance loss. I believe, actually, we're testing a lot more chips right now for a lot longer, and our data shows that the problem is even worse than what we reported in this paper. So we actually call for future work on really understanding and efficiently mitigating variable read disturbance. And we believe the solution is actually a combination of guard bands, error correcting codes, and probably online profiling, similar to variable retention time. If you really want to adapt the refresh rate, for example, to the retention time of a cell, you really need to do online profiling, as we have argued in the past. Okay, maybe I'll give you some chip results, and then we can conclude, since I'm over time, right? Okay. Okay, I've already said a lot of this. So prior works assume that ground truth can be identified. This actually applies to PRAC also. The PRAC solution that was in industry requires you to identify the ground truth nicely. Again, if you don't identify it well, you may be insecure. If you underestimate it, you may have high performance overhead. So no prior work rigorously studies the temporal variation of DRAM read disturbance threshold and implications for future solutions. That's what we want to study. And we answered two research questions. Does read disturbance threshold change over time? And how can we reliably and efficiently measure it? And we analyze implications for read disturbance solutions. So basically, the first thing is yes. The answer to the first question is yes. The second question, we don't know, basically. We don't know how to reliably and efficiently do it. Efficiently is hard. Reliably is easy. Okay, so we use our experimental testing infrastructure. It's called DRAM Vendor, and we have a laboratory. We have close to, I guess, 80 of these FPGAs right now, maybe 100, where we can test DRAM chips. And we have an HBM infrastructure also to test HBM chips. And we tested a lot of chips from major manufacturers. And I'm not going to bore you with the testing methodology. Let me give you some foundational results. Essentially, read disturbance threshold of a row changes randomly and unpredictably over time. As a result, accurately identifying read disturbance threshold is challenging. Let me give you some examples. This is the read disturbance threshold on the y-axis, and this is the measurement number. How many times you measure the read disturbance threshold of a row? 5 is a small number. 1 is a very small number. So you may get this measurement. This measurement can tell you that you need to hammer the row 37,360 times to get a bit flip. And you may get this sort of measurement over time as you keep measuring. And this is kind of the pattern we get. As you measure, you get different thresholds. And you can see that some of them are low over here. The question is, how low can you get? The lowest can you get is unbounded, essentially. We don't know when you will get to the lowest number. You keep testing and testing and testing, and that number may become lower at some point. That's the unfortunate part of a quantum-like effect. So this is how we summarize the results. So this is for a given chip. This is what we see. So for example, the minimum RDT happens at 17,000th measurement for this chip. But we cannot guarantee that that's the minimum, because if we keep testing, we may actually get to some other minimum. So this is a bit sad. So we actually characterize many chips. The paper has a lot more results, and we see that the RDT are the bins for different read disturbance thresholds, and this is one particular chip. So this is the number of measurements where the RDT falls into one of those bins. Yeah. Okay, we do 100,000 measurements over here. So you can see that it's a distribution like this. The lowest RDT is here, the highest RDT that we observe is here. So you actually have a nice tail over there, which is not very good. So essentially, RDT consistently varies over time across all tested DRAM chips. There's a lot more characterization results in the paper that you can look. And we find out that VRD, variable read disturbance, is likely unpredictable because we did actually a lot of statistical tests, and we see random probability distributions, and we find no repeating patterns in the series of consecutively measured RDT values using the autocorrelation function. So this is kind of similar to variable retention time phenomenon. Okay, so there's in-depth analysis that I will not go into a lot of detail. I will probably go through this really fast, but let me give you the key takeaways. So all tested DRAM rows exhibit variable read disturbance. Relatively few, like less than 500 measurements, are unlikely to yield the minimum RDT of a row. So for a given row, you need to do more than 500 testing. And again, we cannot bound this. And data patterns, temperature, and aggressor row on time all affect variable read disturbance. So you need to take into account all of those things. So again, I will probably skip this, but I'll give you one of the results. Variation in read disturbance threshold can reach 3.5x. This number has increased. So when we published this paper, it was published in HPCA 2025 in March. This was the largest we have seen. Later, we kept testing more DRAM chips, and this number has increased to around 5x or so. So as we keep testing, that number increases, and that's not good, right? So in the field, you may get RDT or read disturbance thresholds that are much lower than what RowHammer protections can be configured. Okay, this is the other takeaway, and we have a lot of results over here. So if you actually test a row only once, the probability that you're going to get the minimum RDT is going to be very, very low. If you keep testing, the probability that you're going to get the minimum is going to be high. But again, you don't have a bound. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with these. There's a lot in the paper, and these slides are all available. Okay. Yeah, I already said this. So let's talk about implications for security. So accurate identification is extremely challenging since this is an unpredictable phenomenon. So we analyze the use of a guard band and ECC with our limited data. And these together may prevent VRD-induced bit flips, but unfortunately, large guard bands induce performance overhead. So we call for future work on online RDT profiling, which is actually helped by SMD type of mechanisms that we discussed earlier. So we would really like to have runtime configurable read disturbance mitigations that adapt themselves to what we profile over time. So important caveat, essentially, more measurements do yield worse results. We know this very well now. So read disturbance threshold distribution tail expands. So as you keep testing, you get lower numbers. So what would result with millions or billions of RDT measurements yields? We don't know, but probably it'll get worse and worse. Okay, we already said this. So how long does it take to profile? Essentially, measuring the RDT of each row only once with 8,000 hammers using 4 data patterns at 3 temperature levels takes 39 minutes in a bank of 256K rows. That's only once. If you do it 1,000 times, that's 39 times 1,000 minutes. I mean, this is one single row, which is not good. So we need better profiling and identification mechanisms. And we have an analysis of how long it takes. Like comprehensive RDT testing can take tens of hours if you do only 1,000 measurements, 1 data pattern, 1 temperature level, 1 aggressor row on time, which is not comprehensive, as you can see. Okay, so that's also interesting. So this is what we analyze in the paper. If you actually use a large guard band, it doesn't guarantee that minimum RDT is always identified, and it's likely not effective alone. And it also introduced a lot of performance overhead. We actually look at different solutions like PRAC and different type of RowHammer protections. If you actually introduce a large guard band over here, large margin, it can introduce very large overheads with these RowHammer solutions. So relying solely on guard bands is not recommended. So we use ECC and guard bands together, and using a 10% guard band combined with ECC, at least a single error correcting ECC, is likely unsafe. So you need actually at least a 20% guard band to get to levels where at least single error correcting ECCs can correct, according to our results. But unfortunately, these results are outdated. With new results, this study needs to be redone because we see that RDT changes a lot more over time. Okay, there's a lot more in the paper. If you're interested, we look at very different things. that I can cover right now. And if you're interested in the tested modules and chips, we have detailed information, so you can replicate the results if you wish. So that's the paper. I'm not going to conclude over here because I already said all of this, but I will say that there's a lot more future work needed. That's one of the reasons why we built this lab where we can test lots of DRAM chips from different kinds. And we would like to understand and discover this sort of phenomenon and try to develop models for it. Unfortunately, we know that this phenomenon exists at a higher level, at the architectural level, but we can only hypothesize why it exists at a device level. So we believe this is due to some sort of charge traps changing over time, but that requires some more modeling at the device levels. And we're happy to collaborate with people who are doing device level work. Actually, we're very happy to collaborate with anyone who's interested in this work. Okay, that's the paper. I'm happy to take more questions. Yes, Jim. Yeah, we don't know.
Seems like then writing the same data to a cell will either cause more of the charges to be trapped or less than. Is that something you plan to look at?
Yes, that's something we're looking at actively right now, actually. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it after we get some more results. Maybe. Yeah, exactly. There may be some some effects, but it may be a little bit different from these effects.
Okay. We don't have more any other questions. We'll switch to the next presentation. Thank you.